Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar for Cambridge Biology, presented by authors Evan Roberts, Tammy Heath and our lead science publisher Sarah Fabris. My name is Caroline Paul and I'm the New South Wales State Sales Manager based here in Sydney. Before we get started, in the spirit of reconciliation, Cambridge University Press and Assessment acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. Our agenda today starts off with a recorded presentation from Evan Roberts. Evan is a science and HSC biology teacher with more than 15 years experience teaching secondary students in public and independent schools. He lectures in education at the University of Sydney and is an experienced author of several science education resources. After Evan, Sarah will be running through an online digital feature demonstration, which is available for all New South Wales science resources. Then we will have time for questions from all of you with Sarah and Tammy. Tammy has extensive experience in the New South Wales Catholic and independent sectors. Tammy has taught senior biology, chemistry and physics in both rural and Sydney settings and has over 10 years experience as an HSC biology exam marker. I will then conclude the webinar with details on availability of all resources as well as the contact details of the sales team. So with that, let's get started.
Hi, I'm Evan. I'm one of the authors for the Year 11 and Year 12 Biology Cambridge textbook. And I'm here to talk you through some of the key features of our book that I think really makes it stand out. So first of all, when we were looking at developing the book, we had a long consultation with all of the author team who are all experienced teachers, and we thought about what we wanted to use this book for and how we could make it accessible to all students and also a really reliable source. So we originally made sure that we refined everything that we were doing, and we were looking at the actual content in the syllabus and how we could simplify everything but keep the rigor involved. So we made sure that we addressed all of the new syllabus dot points but told a story with the new syllabus dot points. So we didn't want to just alter an existing resource. We actually have created this completely from scratch, and as such we've tried to make it relevant to a 2027 classroom. So we have simplified a lot of the superfluous information that might be found in other books so that students can really hone in on the information that they actually need. But we've been very, very specific with the way that we've produced each one of the chapters. So there are three focus areas, but obviously still there's a heavy content push in biology, as there always is. So instead of overwhelming students with information that is not necessary, we now know what the syllabus is asking for because we've been teaching this for a long period of time, and this is a refinement of that. So we don't have to go into depth in some areas, but we can really flesh out others. Obviously, we still have to be doing our depth studies. With the depth studies, we have written some of the sections to be quite inquiry-led, but it's still very much a focus on refining the key content that the students have. So we know that the depth studies should be student-led, and so hopefully some of the sections in the book will inspire students to have further inquiry. And with the field work that is involved, especially in the ecology section, we know that some schools maybe don't have the ability to send students on field work, and maybe some students are using this resource as an independent tool. So we've put a lot of sample data and data analysis questions in there, and also some examples of how we can use certain sampling techniques within the chapter, so it teaches those skills that would be learned on the field work side of things. So next, if we have a look, we explicitly link all of the dot points to each section in each chapter, and there's only a few dot points related to each section. Each section then has things like summary tables, glossary lists. We've got quick quizzes at the end of each section, and those quizzes are aligned to only the content that is in those sections. So students only need this as their only resource. They don't need to go away and Google anything. It's all on there. Every question that is asked in the book, whether that's a quick quiz, quick check question, or whether that is the end of chapter questions, they are all HSE verbs, and the sample responses that we've created are also aligned to the HSE verbs as well. So when the students check their answers, they can also scaffold them in relation to what they would be expected to do in an exam. And we did design this for independent student study. So we want this to be used. It can be used for a flipped classroom. It can be used as a classroom resource, but it can also be used for students to go away and actually learn in depth things that they may have missed out in class, or maybe it was rushed over, or maybe they just feel like they need to revise it. So there's lots of imagery in here, lots of detailed annotated diagrams. We have flowcharts. We've put a focus on tables, summary tables, and really just highlighting those key bits of information for the students with smaller text chunks, because we know that the students just are going to have a look at a page of text and zone out. So we've tried to make it as engaging as possible visually, but also keeping those sections quite small next to those checkpoint questions. Now, if we have a look throughout, when we were first designing the book, we were thinking about what should the resources look like, and what do the teachers need as well as the students. And if we have a look at the HSC for the past, since the new syllabus started, we've seen that we've got so much data analysis, we've got stimulus analysis, and that is something that maybe other resources didn't focus on. But we've obviously got a working scientifically skills chapter right at the start, but then we've integrated that throughout. So it's not a standalone chapter, it's integrated into every other chapter. When we ask questions, a lot of our questions have a data focus or a stimulus focus. And this also is reflected in the supplementary worksheets that we've created. We didn't want to just add questions in there that were low order. We wanted problem-solving questions to take the load off teachers having to come up with those themselves, and also enrich the students' unpacking of the information that is actually in the textbook as well. And we've seen that the skills focus, obviously it's still 60% across the syllabus. And so we try to really incorporate that throughout the textbook. In all of the practical activities, all of the discussion questions at the end, we've incorporated data analysis in there. Sometimes we've added sample data for students to compare to their own data, or if they didn't get a chance to conduct the experiment themselves, then they can analyze the sample data. We also took care with thinking of maybe some new practical experiments, some new activities that you might not have seen in other resources or done in your classroom. We've still got some Old Faithfuls in there with a slight twist sometimes, but we didn't see the point in putting out a resource that just repeated things from the past. Obviously, we've got things like our dialysis tubing and our surface area volume ratio pracs, but then we've tried to incorporate some things that might reinvigorate some of the old classics. So hopefully you'll see those and be a little bit inspired by them. We also have these amazing exam support practice boxes, and so these really stand out from the crowd. So in each section, there is an example of a question that could be asked in an exam. And this is based on the verbs that the dot points are addressing. We unpack what the question is asking for the students. So we have the question, unpack what it is asking, give a sample marking criteria differentiated from 1 to 4 or however many marks, and then a sample response. This, we're hoping, will allow students to really see the sort of questions that are going to be asked of them, and then refine what they're learning rather than just recalling the things like the function of different organelles. It's applying that knowledge to the verbs and applying that knowledge to specific questions. And we've done so many of these throughout that we're hoping that by the end, the students will get a really clear overview of what their end of year exam will look like, and the HSC in general will look like. And those are also supported by the targeted exam practice videos that walk through each one of those and really unpack those sections for the students. Now, I mentioned earlier about the the questions that we've been putting together, and all of them being aligned to the HSC. The end of chapter questions also have marks allocated to them, because we were discussing as a team, and we thought that it was really important for students to understand how much to answer questions and to gauge that from marks. Is what we teach in our classroom, so why don't we reflecting that in our resources? So each one of the end of chapter questions has a mark allocated. We also have multiple choices in there, and all of the sample responses, once again, are scaffolded related to the verb scaffold. So students can really unpack that and mark their own work, and then maybe seek feedback from their teacher afterwards if they've not achieved those higher marks. And then we also have an amazing new platform with lots more questions that are beyond the textbook, where we can build our own exams, but they'll be talked about later. And then, if that wasn't all enough, we have a digital workbook. So for each section in the chapters, we've written worksheets to go along with them, supplementary worksheets. Now, the supplementary worksheets, we really wanted to give you something that was worthwhile. So you won't see match definitions to terms. You won't see fill in the blanks and closed captions. What you will see is a lot of data analysis. You will see novel scenarios being presented to students and them having to really apply higher order thinking. So we've really tried to make problem-solving activities, data analysis, stimulus-based activities in each one of those worksheets. So themselves, they're actually a really strong resource to just go along with the textbook, and each one of them aligns with each one of the sections. So you'll see that they're quite a lot of time was spent on these. These weren't just an addition. These were a complete part of the actual package, and hopefully that you'll find that they're really useful in your classroom. And now that's everything to do with the textbook, and now we're going to unpack the digital platform as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name's Sarah, and I'm just going to take you through a quick demo of our online platform. So what you can see here is the dashboard view when you first log in as a teacher. So this is a teacher demo account that we're looking at. So in biology, if we head over to the top left corner, this is where we can open up the table of contents to navigate to different parts of the textbook. And you can see here, if you're in the senior science series, any other resources you're using. So for example, physics or chemistry or the year 12 versions of everything will all eventually be populated here as well. You'll only see the ones that your school is using there. So they'll all just be listed together. So chapter 2 is our sample chapter. So this is the one that's available at the moment. If we head to the introduction, I'll just take you through what some of the content looks like in a digital format. So you can see here the same things that are in the print book, the syllabus mapping, the glossary terms, and we've also got this knowledge check that students can do to revise prior knowledge. So these are quiz questions that are drag and drop, sometimes fill in the blank, sometimes multiple choice. These all come from our stage 4 and 5 Cambridge resources. They're all auto-marked, so when students check their answers, they'll get an immediate result. It'll tell them what they got right, what they got wrong, and what section they can actually revise for any of that material, including the ones they got correct. So these links here will actually navigate to a separate prior knowledge course that students can access that comes directly from our stage 4 and 5 resources. So they don't need to have a subscription to those resources. If they have a subscription to biology year 11, they'll still be able to view all of this, and it will view all of that content that they would see in the chapter or the specific section from stage 4 and 5. So it's a really, really handy revision tool that will also be available in physics and also in all of our year 12 titles. In year 12, a lot of these sections might link back to year 11 if it's relevant content, or it might be also stage 4 and 5, depending on the topic. So we can navigate through up here to different sections. So you can see the concept map appearing, which is also at the start of each of our chapters in the print book. And then the actual content in each of these. So each section is its own different page here. So as we navigate through, this is all exactly what you will see in the book. We do have videos embedded with the content as well, so students can watch them directly in the content. As we scroll through, there'll be rollover glossary terms as well, so that they can view the definition. Then if I go down to a practical, so the pracs are also in the print book, and they all appear here. And there's also formats where you can download them in Word files. So any format you can think of, it'll all be provided there. The practicals also do have these pop-up teacher notes. They're called teacher notes, but they are sometimes lab tech notes as well. So it just depends on what type of prac it is. Sometimes in this case, they'll have example data that you can use as well if a student's absent, or you want them to compare this to the data they got, or you just want it to be theory-based if you're not able to actually conduct the prac in school time. There'll also be sample responses in here for any questions like the discussion section in most of the pracs. If we go down to the bottom of the section, you'll see the exam practice boxes that Evan mentioned. The video for these is in the header of each one, and it'll open a pop-up where students can watch directly. There is also shortcuts that they can use to navigate to different parts of any given section. Worksheets can be downloaded here. So this includes the worksheets that are in the digital workbook that can be downloaded all together, or they can be downloaded separately here. You'll also see the review questions from the print book. These are also can be answered digitally in this separate review tab here. So I'll go through that in a moment. And the practical, like I mentioned here, this is the download version that you can get of the Word version, so that if you do want to modify it at all, you can do that. And the videos can be accessed as well as pop-ups. So if I navigate to the next section, which is the quiz. So this is an auto-marked quiz that students can complete. You can see here sometimes the answers are showing just because we are in a teacher account, so there's a bit more flexibility on what's visible. This can be assigned as a separate task as well, which is really handy being auto-marked. The review tab, like I mentioned, will go to the section review questions from the print book. They all come with these workspaces that do have math symbols enabled, which is really handy for physics, not as relevant for biology, but you'll always find this in all of our science and maths titles will have this functionality. They can also use the text field, which means that they can draw tables in biology, which is super handy. They can also draw if they're going to sketch a diagram, or just upload their own file as well. Now you'll see this check answer button here. The teacher can decide whether or not this is enabled or not. So you can turn this off and the students won't see that, and you can mark their work directly, or you can turn it on so that they can self-assess and view the answer themselves. So it just depends on what kind of independent study you want them to have, and you can change that at any time as well. This resources tab appears with all of the sections, and this is just another place where you can download all of the different resources that we've just covered. So if we navigate to the chapter review, there's a couple of extra things in here. So there's the checklist that appears in the book, which also can be downloaded. So there's a printer-friendly version of that will have an extra column on the end so students can check off questions as they answer them. The questions in the book, which are linked from that checklist, all of the multiple choice questions are auto-marked if they do them online, or you can use the download file. And the extended response exam style questions are all a workspace, the same as the section review. So there's pretty much 3 different places to access these sorts of questions. So they're all in the print book. You can access them digitally here, or if you download the questions, you can do them in a worksheet style, kind of printer-friendly version as well. And again, the resources tab is just showing the various things that can be downloaded for a given section. So some of the learning management features that go with all of this content as well. So we do have the assessments tab here. This is where you would navigate to if you're creating a custom practice exam, like Evan mentioned. This demo account doesn't have the data there to show you today, but this is where you would then select create, and you would be able to create a custom exam using all of the different filters like focus area, difficulty, and so on. So one of the other really great tools that we've got is Task Manager. So if I go to this is where we can actually set a custom task sequence for a group of students. So what I can do is it's just a drag and drop functionality. I can drop in, for example, a section, which is just referring to content. So I can choose this for whatever section I'm in, whichever one I want to go to. It will just default the default selection that it shows you will be whatever section you were just in. So because we were in chapter 2, it's got that here, but you can just navigate wherever you need to when you're assigning it. So if I insert a section here, we might then say we want students to do a quiz. So this is one of the auto-marked quizzes from the sections. Let's say we want to start with 2A. So when you're assigning a quiz, because it's auto-marked, there is an option with this little symbol here to set alternate pathways for your students. So if I select this, I might say, well, if students get 70% or more, I want them to be on a different pathway. So this will create this pathway here for students that get over 70% and this pathway if they get under. So we might say, okay, we want the higher achievers to do a worksheet in the next section if we want them to move on. So you can go ahead to the next section and then find a worksheet that you want them to do. So this will include files that are downloaded as worksheets. So that's why you're seeing practicals and questions in this option. And we might say the students that get under that, we want them to do a video, for example. So you can see that it's sort of a bit infinite in really what you can assign and how you want to customize it. You can also put custom activities in. So this is just kind of like a blank activity for if you've got external links or a specific kind of classroom activity or discussion you want them to do, you can put your content in there. This is also where if you create any custom exams in this assessments tab, this is where they would appear and you can drop them into your sequence as well. So obviously we don't have any in here, but they would appear as a list if you've got multiple. The great thing about this, so when we assign it, we can schedule it. So if we wanted to do this in the future, rather than it appearing in student accounts immediately, you can. You can also assign it to multiple or single classes and edit exactly which students see it. So if you've got someone who's away that day, you can remove them. So when I click assign, you'll get a pop-up to confirm that that's been successful. And you'll see here the templates options as well. So you can create templates and keep reusing the same sequence if you really like what you've set up. And you can share that between teacher accounts in your faculty as well if you're all using the same resources. So finally, the teacher resources, this is where you can go to download all of the different files that are available. So your worksheets, for example, will be here as PDFs that are print ready. Or you can download a zip file that will have all of them in Word format with the answers included. So if you do want to just download them all in bulk and then sort them on your own computer, you can do that as well. That's the same for the tests as well. So obviously we're just looking at a sample here, but you would have everything from the resource appearing here. All of your planning documents are here. So the syllabus mapping, for example, teaching programs. There will also be PowerPoint summaries available here eventually, and a couple of other bits and pieces as well. So if I navigate back to the dashboard, finally, so just to recap here, you can see all the different links of where we just were, navigating to classes, which is also on the side pane here, the assessments you've created. So if you do create a custom exam, and the tasks. So this is the task that we've just created. And then at any point, if you are struggling and you do need more support, you can go down to this bottom right-hand corner to access platform support there. If you are experiencing any issues, this is where you can go to find support articles and also to contact the team. And I might leave it there, and I think it's time for questions.
All right. So thanks again, everyone, for joining. And I've got Tammy here with me now. Evan is an apology today. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it. So thank you again to Evan for pre-recording that presentation that we've just been through. So we do have some questions that some of you have submitted ahead of time when you registered for the webinar. So thank you for sending those through. While we answer these, if you do have any more questions, please do pop them in. You should see a chat function there on your screen that you can ask some questions, and we'll get to them if we have time. If we don't have time, we will get in touch with you afterwards to answer your questions as well. So first of all, I've got a question here from Rosemary. So just asking about the first-hand investigations and where they're situated and whether they're integrated. So I think we've pretty much covered that, I think, with both Evan and my demo we've just been through. But yeah, so the practical investigations from the syllabus dot points of investigating are all covered in the textbook directly. And then they're available in that screen where you could see the interactive textbook, where you can view them a second time and then a third time as a downloadable resource. So they are included in that workbook PDF that can be downloaded, and also throughout the textbook. So we have a question from Beth asking about whether there's programs for all of the modules or focus areas. So yes, the focus areas all have their own teaching program allocated to them. So That's all provided. And sorry, I've just seen Mitch asking the same question, so I'm answering that question too, Mitch. So we've got one for each each focus area as a Word document, so you can edit them. That's included with the online teaching suite that you get as a teacher, but we also do have the sample versions of those available now. So if you do want a copy of those, they are, I believe they're accessible through the landing page at the moment, but our reps can also send you those links directly and share them with you if they're visiting your school. So please do reach out if you are interested in seeing those now to help with your programming, and we've got that available for physics as well. Okay, so we had another question submitted in advance from Rose. I think there are a few questions. So just relating to the workbook, so it might be one also for you, Tammy. So Rose is asking whether the workbook questions are classified into surface deep transfer. So they're not specifically classified that way. It wasn't a way that we planned to do it. They are covered in, there is kind of a variety of different formats that our worksheets are in, though, just depending on the topic. So some of them might be, but it wasn't really intentional for them to all be structured that way. As Evan mentioned, there is a really heavy focus on working scientifically skills and data analysis using kind of new stimulus and that sort of thing. Tammy, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that on the worksheets that are in the workbook.
Well, we didn't, as you said, we didn't set out to set them up that way, but there are things that are catering to different levels.
Yeah, absolutely. And another question from Rose was is there a workbook that's ideal for life skills students? So the workbook itself is designed for all abilities. That's the way that we had intended it. I know that Evan mentioned that the focus is on those complex stimulus and problem solving questions. We have also added a couple of keyword revision worksheets as well, so that you've got those there for particularly for biology, where it is quite content and keyword heavy for students new to it for the first time. But I guess the main thing about these resources is that everything can be downloaded offline and edited where it needs to be. So you can adapt those in any way that you need to suit the different needs of your learners or how you're setting up your classrooms as well. And I think there was just one more part and Rose, you also asked about whether the digital workbook can be accessed offline. So yes, it can. So this can be downloaded from both the student subscription and the teacher subscription as a PDF. The teachers also have access to the Word version. So this is all something you can download completely separately of the interactive textbook and use offline or print where you need to as well. Everything's formatted to be written in pen and paper with answer lines and everything like that. So it is all ready to go to be printed if that's the way that you want to use it with your students. Okay, so we've had a few more questions coming in. We are almost out of time, so I'll get through a couple of them. So someone is just asking about lab technician support for practicals. So yeah, those teacher note pop-ups I've just shown you in the interactive textbook, they do often also include lab tech notes. Some of those are things like substitutions for chemicals, or, alternative ways of running the prac where there are different ways of doing it. Generally, the version of the prac you see in the book is the most accessible version, so the one that uses really commonly available lab equipment that most schools would have. And then we have other options included in those teacher notes as well. There will also be separate risk assessments provided in Word format for all of those practicals in the teacher resources. So thanks for that question, Jessica. And so I've got another question from Mitch about a digital copy of the text in offline capacity. So yes, the full textbook is also available as an offline PDF. So that's available in both the student and the teacher resource. I'm conscious a lot of schools might not have digital subscriptions for all of their students. So just to note that if your school does adopt this resource to use as your main class resource, you will get a complimentary subscription to the teaching suite so that you can access all of these documents offline as well. So we've got that available. Okay, I think we're just about time. We almost went over with the demo, so thank you so much for your time, everyone. I might hand back to Caroline, and if there's any questions we haven't got to, we will get back to you later on in the week as well. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you to everyone involved in today's webinar. Just before we finish, I'd like to share a few details of the new publications. So like Sarah has spoken about, included in the series are a few different options of a print book, with the interactive textbook included, as well as a digital-only option. So the teaching suite that Sarah just mentioned is offered complimentary to schools once they implement the student resources. So the next slide lists the samples that we have now to share with you all for you to explore further, and we would be happy to schedule a time with you and your team to discuss more details across the series. The final published resources will be available in term 3. And then lastly, we have the details here of the sales team. So if you'd like to reach out, by all means, but we will be in touch with you as a follow-up after today's webinar. Also, just a reminder, we also have a physics webinar on next week, the 18th of June, presented by Dr. Simon Crook. So when we do follow up with all attendees from today, we'll include the registration link for that as well, if you haven't seen it already. So that is the end of the webinar. Thank you for joining today, and you will hear from one of us, and we'll follow up with all the samples that we have so far. So thank you very much.